B'siyata d'shmaya, we're going to learn Rosh Hashanah Daf Chof Beis. We're going to start from the next Mishnah, 4 lines from the top of the Amud. Says the Mishnah, Av u'bnoi shero es hachodesh yelchu. That a father and a son who together see the new moon, even though they will soon see, but it could be, according to Tanna Kama, even though they're not allowed to loymit starfim zeim zeh, they will not be allowed to testify together, because witnesses in any judgment, and we'll see that giving testimony on the new month is similar to a judgment and is learned from a posuk that speaks about it as a judgment, and therefore people who are posel, who are not allowed to be witnesses together, for example, relatives, close relatives like a father and a son, nonetheless they should both come to the Sanhedrin and give testimony. Why? Because we want more people there to give testimony, because besides for this father and son who are coming, there may be others who are coming, and it could be that either the father's testimony will not be okay or the son's testimony will not be okay, and either way, if any one of them is okay, they will be able to join up with a different witness from elsewhere, and then they'll be able to testify on the new month. And therefore they're allowed to come, and they can even come on Shabbos. A father and a son, even though they cannot act as a pair to be Mekadosh the Chodesh, but even on Shabbos they can be Mechal Shabbos and both come to testify. That's the opinion of the Tanna Kama, that a father and a son together cannot testify for the new month. Reb Shimon Omer, Reb Shimon argues and says, Avu b'noi v'chol hakrovin, that a father and a son or any other close relatives, ksherim le'edus hachodesh, even though regarding other testimonies, other in court, they cannot give testimony together. Regarding the month, they can, and it's going to be learnt out from a pasuk. Omer Rabbi Yosi, Rabbi Yosi said, Maisa b'Tuvia Roifa, there was a story, an incident with Tuvia the doctor, Shero es hachodesh b'Yerushalayim hu u'bnoi, that him and his son v'avdoi meshuchrar, and his slave who had been freed, and we know that a non-Jewish slave, after he's freed, he has the status of a Yisrael. However, he hasn't got a Jewish lineage, and therefore there are certain halachas that an Eved, even though he's Meshuchrar, and he has all the halachas of a regular Yid, nonetheless he has restrictions. Here, in the case of Rabbi Yosi, with the case of the Tuvia HaRoifa, where he, his son, and his freed slave saw the new moon, before they came to give testimony by the Beis Din, the Kohanim would receive them, and the Kohanim received Oisei as Benoi, him and his son. They said the two of you can act as a pair, not like we saw from the Tanna Kama. This is more like what Reb Shimon said. This is following Reb Shimon that says, Avu b'noi v'chol hakrovin, ksherim le'edus hachodesh. Upaslu es avdoi, but they said that even though this slave has been freed, he cannot testify on the new moon. When it came to the Sanhedrin to listen to the testimony and to declare the new month, they said, we have no issue of you giving testimony together with the slave, but not like Reb Shimon, rather like the Tanna Kama. They said that you and your son, they cannot be a pair to give edus. Says the Gemara, Omer Reb Levi, my Talmud Reb Shimon. What would be the source for Reb Shimon who says that a person with his son is allowed to give testimony for Kiddush HaChodesh? Answers the Gemara, the Chsiv, it says in the Pasuk, Vayomer Hashem el Moshe v'el Aaron be'eretz Mitzrayim leimor. In the next Pasuk it says, HaChodesh hazeh lochem. What does it mean, HaChodesh hazeh lochem, Roshei Chodoshim, Rishonu lochem l'chodshei Hashana? When it says lochem, to you in plural, Eidus zu teik sheira bochem, any amount of you or any of you can come together to declare and to determine the new month. Even if the you, lochem, you in plural, includes a father and a son, it's kosher for Rosh Chodesh. Rabbanon. However, the Tanna Kama and the Beis Din at the time, who did not want to receive a father and a son, they say that the lochem means that Eidus zu tei mesura lochem, that the testimony that's going to determine when the new month is, which it was given, Hashem said this to Moshe and Aaron, was impressing on them that it's been given to you, to the Chashuvim, to the prominent people within the generation, to the Sanhedrin. Only they are the ones who can determine when the new month is going to be, not anyone else. And that's what they learned from the Lochem. And according to the Rabbanon, since from the Lochem you just learn that it's the dignitaries within Klal Yisrael that have to determine the new month, therefore there's no source that a father and a son are kosher for Eidos, and indeed they hold that Hu Benoi are not kosher. Continues the Gemara. Omer Rabbi Yosi Maisa b'Tuvia Haroife v'chulei. So we had the incident with Tuvia Haroife, who came with his son and his freed slave. And we saw that this incident that was narrated by Rabbi Yosi is arguing with Reb Shimon. Reb Shimon said that Hu Benoi is kosher Eidos. And over here, the Beis Din, in the story, the Sanhedrin, which in the story of Rabbi Yosi, they did not receive Hu Benoi. Omer Rav Chonon bar Rava Hilchasa Reb Shimon. Rav Chonon says that halacha is like Rav Shimon, that Hu Benoi, a father and the son, are kosher for Eidos HaChodesh. Omer Rav Huna Rav Chonon bar Rava. Rav Huna said to Rav Chonon, number one, Rabbi Yosi. We know that the halacha is that when there's a machlokes Reb Shimon and Rabbi Yosi, then the halacha is like Rabbi Yosi, not like Reb Shimon, as is apparent in Eruvin Daf Mem Vav Amud Beis. And also Umaisa, Rabbi Yosi wasn't just his own opinion, he was proven from an incident. And there's a concept called a Maisa Rav. In Shabbos Daf Chof Aleph we saw that when something is backed up by a story, by something that actually took place and was ruled, that also has some strength. Va'at Omras, Hilchasa Reb Shimon, and you, Rav Chonon, are saying that halacha is like Reb Shimon when we have Rabbi Yosi and that he's coming from an incident that say differently. Omar, so Rav Chonon said to Rav Huna, "V'hozimnin skiin omris kamei de Rav." A number of times I said to Rav this machlokes and Hilchasa Reb Shimon that the halacha was like Reb Shimon, v'lo omar li v'lo midi, and he didn't argue with me. He agreed to me that the halacha was like Reb Shimon. Now it happens to be that Rav over there in Eruvin Daf Mem Vav isn't so clear that you always follow Rabbi Yosi over Reb Shimon. But either way, we have an incident, we have a story. Rabbi Yosi came with a story. So how indeed can Rav, it seems that Rav, even though there was a story that was backing up against Reb Shimon says Hu Benoi is kosher, and in the story the Sanhedrin said Hu Benoi is not a kosher. Nonetheless, Rav said and agreed with Rav Chonon that halacha is like Reb Shimon. Omarle. So he said to him, Heicha Tonis, tell us exactly how you said over to Rav the two opinions. Omarle, he says, Ibcha. Indeed, I said it the other way around. I said that Rabbi Yosi holds that Hu Benoi is kosher, and that Reb Shimon is the one that narrated the story that the Beis Din said that it was not okay Hu Benoi. And then Rav said, the halacha is like Reb Shimon, that Hu Benoi is indeed not kosher. So you see, so what Rav Chonon took from there is that Rav says that halacha is always like Reb Shimon. And therefore, in the truth, when it's Reb Shimon who said that Hu Benoi is kosher, Rav Chonon assumed it means that Rav would agree that halacha is always like Reb Shimon. He says that if so, you haven't got any proof, because Rav was just following the story. You said the story in Reb Shimon's name, so he followed the story. But in actual fact, the story was Rabbi Yosi who said over the story, and therefore the halacha will be like Rabbi Yosi, not like Reb Shimon. He didn't follow the ruling because it's Reb Shimon. He followed the ruling because it was a story. It happens to be you told him the story in the name of Reb Shimon, but that wasn't the truth. The truth is, and the story is, that Hu Benoi was not accepted, and therefore the halacha is like Rabbi Yosi, that Hu Benoi is not kosher. It seems that that's how we're supposed to understand this Gemara. Continues the Gemara, Omar Tovi, Berei de Mori Tovi, Omar Mar Ukva. Tovi, the son of Mori, Tovi said in the name of Mar Ukva, and Omar Shmuel in the name of Shmuel, that Hilchasa Reb Shimon, the halacha is like Reb Shimon, that Hu Benoi is kosher to give testimony. Continues the next Mishnah. Eilu heina psulim. The following are psulim for Kiddush Eidos HaChodesh. We know that for regular testimony in Beis Din, we know that min HaTorah, an Eved is Posel Eidos. An Isha, a woman and a slave are Posel Eidos. Somebody who's a real thief is also Posel Eidos. But that is only when a person goes and takes something, an item, an object, or money from somebody without permission and steals it, he's Posel Eidos. Now the Mishnah is going to bring a list of people that are in the bracket of they're similar to thieves, but it's only midrabanon, because they're not really stealing anything. They're just being a little bit dishonest and a little bit not so okay with monetary issues, and they're being blinded by money to act inappropriately. And then the Chachamim said that we're afraid, we suspect that you might get carried away with money, with bribes, and therefore the Chachamim said that we cannot, in certain cases, we do not receive their edus. And there are certain cases that women and slaves are, even though min haTorah normally they are posel edim, but there's certain cases which women and slaves can give edus. And this is two examples that are going to be mentioned. Number one, if a person died and we need people to testify that this person had died so that his wife can get married. So there the Gemara in Yevamos Kuf Chof Beis learns that even a woman and a slave is kosher to give edus. And also regarding a soita in Soita Daf Lamed Aleph, if somebody comes and testifies that this woman did an aveira, then we would not put her through the whole process of drinking the soita waters. And we say that a woman, even though normally she's posel edus, when it comes to soita, she is allowed to testify that this woman did the aveira and would not drink the waters. So that's the bigger picture here. So let's see the Mishnah. The following are posel to give for Kiddush HaChodesh, and they are posel midrabanon, as we said. Number one is Mesachik B'Kubya, somebody who gambles, he plays with dice. Umalve B'Ribis, and somebody who lends, taking interest. He's not stealing, but he's doing something which is inappropriate. You're not allowed to lend with ribis. He's doing something inappropriate just for lust of money. Umafriche yoinim, the dove racers, which is similar to playing with the dice. V'soichre shvius, and people who are selling the fruits that have kedushas shvius, one's not allowed to do that. Va'avodim, and slaves. All of those are not allowed to give edus for the new month. The rule is, Kol edus she'eino isha ksheira lo, any type of edus where a woman is not allowed to give edus, for example, Kiddush HaChodesh, afhein einon ksherim lo, so too slaves and all these gazlonim derabon, these rabbinical thieves, so to speak, these people who are suspected by the Chachamim of not being honest, they cannot give edus, and Kiddush HaChodesh is in that bracket. Says the Gemara, we can deduce from the Mishnah, those cases where a woman is kosher to give edus, as we mentioned before, either to testify that a man had died and his wife can remarry, or in the case of soita, then it seems that afhein, these also, the slaves and all those mentioned here, ksherim la, are also kosher, because the Mishnah said that the rule is, these are all posel, and the rule is that wherever a woman is posel for edus, these are posel for edus. So it seems that in the case where a woman is not posel, these will also not be posel. So ha'ishak sherelos, in those cases where a woman is nemon, then these are also kosher. However, somebody who steals as a proper thief min haTorah, he will not be believed, he will not be able to give edus, even in those cases where a woman and an eved are allowed to give edus, they will not be able to give edus. Omer Vashi, Zoyse Meres, from here we can deduce that Gazlan de Devreim, somebody who's considered a thief only from a rabbinical point of view, Ksherim le'edus isha, they can give testimony for a man that his wife that he had died and his wife can remarry, or a soita, as we just saw now. Continues the next Mishnah. Mishara es hachodesh, somebody saw the new moon on the 29th on the 30th of the old month, and it's the first day of what could be Rosh Chodesh, ve'eino yochel alich, and he cannot walk. Then markivin, then moilichin oise ala chamor, you can put him onto a donkey and take him to the Sanhedrin, even on Shabbos. Vafilu b'mita, or if people have to carry him on their shoulders whilst he's lying on a bed, also even on Shabbos, he's allowed to go. V'im tzudolahem, and if they're afraid that there's an ambush of the Baisusim and the Kutim and people who are trying to deceive the Beis Din and to derail the Eidus of the new month, which they were common to do, if they're afraid of an ambush, then loichim biyad maklis, they can even take with them sticks. If it was a long way, then loichin biyadam mazonos, they can even take with them food. Because if there's a chance that this witness or these witnesses will arrive in the Sanhedrin in time that they can be able to determine day 30 as being Rosh Chodesh, then Mechalin Nes HaShabbos, one can be Mechal Shabbos for them, and they go out to give testimony on the new month. If it's clear that the journey is too long and they won't get there before day 31, then there's no point in being Mechal Shabbos, because day 31 in any case is going to be Rosh Chodesh if no Eidim come on day 30. Shenemar, and as it says in the pasuk, and we saw this already on Daf Chaf Aleph on the base. The pasuk says, "Eile moyadei Hashem mikroi kodesh asher tikru oisam b'moyadom," that the months should be designated on their right day, on the correct day, and if the moon was seen on day 30, then the Eidim should come, even if it means overriding the halachas of Shabbos, to come to the Sanhedrin and testify that the new moon was seen on day 30 or on day 29, and day 30 will be Rosh Chodesh. Hadron Aloch Arba Rosh Hashonim B'Siyata Deshmai. We finished learning the first parak of Maseches Rosh Hashanah, and Emir Hashem we're going to do Chazara on the first parak of Rosh Hashanah. We're going to go straight into the second parak of Maseches Rosh Hashanah. Says the next Mishnah, Im Einon Makirin Oisai, if the Sanhedrin who are receiving the witnesses, who are giving testimony that they saw the new moon, if they do not know this person, they don't know if he's trustworthy and a loyal Yid or not, then that one sends from the original place somebody who knows this witness, one sends with him somebody else to go with him, to somebody who the Beis Din, the Sanhedrin, do know and recognize, and they will testify on this aid who saw the new moon that he's a trustworthy and loyal person, and then they will be able to receive his witness, his testimony. Barishono, however, initially, they would receive the testimony on the new moon from anybody. But when the Susim disrupted the process, and we'll see in the Gemara what they did, then they made a decree, they would not receive the witnesses, only those who are known to be trustworthy and loyal. And if the Sanhedrin don't know these witnesses, then one has to bring other witnesses to testify on the trustworthiness and the loyalty of this Eidim, and then we'll be able to listen to their testimony. Says the Gemara, we saw in the Mishnah, we send somebody else. It doesn't say acherim, it says acher, just one. Asks the Gemara, my acher, what does acher mean? Chad, does it mean just one? Is it enough for just one person to testify on the loyalty and trustworthiness of another person? V'chad mi mehimon, is one person trusted to give testimony about somebody else? V'tanya, we learned in a brisa, Maisa, there was an incident, Shabahu, that this person who saw the new moon came, Ve'eidov, and a pair of witnesses, in plural, Imai, came with him, Leheidolov, to testify that he was a loyal person. So you see from the brisa, you need two witnesses to testify that he's a loyal person. How can our Mishnah say acher, or just one? Amar of Papa says, my acher. You know what the word acher mean? It doesn't mean as we would have thought it means another person. No, it means another set. Zug acher, another pair of Eidim, and indeed it has to be two, but since it's a single pair, it's in single tense. Hachanami mistabra, this is logical. If you don't say that we're talking about pairs, im einon makirin oisoi, then how are we going to read the Mishnah? In the Mishnah, the first words of the Mishnah, im einon makirin oisoi, if the Sanhedrin don't recognize him is also in single term. My oisoi, who's oisoi? Ilem oisoi chad, are you going to say oisoi means one? Can one aid give testimony on the new moon? The pasuk regarding Rosh Chodesh calls it a judgment. Ki choykli Yisrael hu mishpat leilukei Yaakov. Mishpat ksiv beim, since it's considered a judgment, with any other judgment in the Torah, you always need two aidim. Elomai oisoi. So the word oisoi means him. If they don't recognize him, it seems that him is in single tense. What does it mean? Oisoi hazug. It means that one pair. Not that one person, they don't recognize the pair. Hochanami, so too, and it comes to the word acher, my acher, zug acher. When it says that Meshalchin Imoy, they send with him acher, it doesn't mean a single person, they send with him another pair to testify that the first pair are a kosher people. Asks the Gemara, V'chadle mehemon? You just took it for granted that a single witness cannot give edus on somebody else that he's kosher. The top line of the Omid, V'chad miyominon. Asks the Gemara, Vatani, we learned in a Braisa, Maisa b'Rav Noiroi. There was an incident with Rav Noiroi. Rav Noiroi is just one person. Sheholach etzel ha'ed, who went to testify with he went to testify on a witness who saw the new moon. Leheid alav b'Shabbos b'Usha. Rabbi Noiroi followed this aid all the way to Usha on Shabbos, even on Shabbos, to testify that this person was a kosher person. So you see that Rav Noiroi went on his own to testify on the loyalty of that person. It doesn't say that he went as a pair. So how could you, if you say that one person cannot testify on somebody else, how could Rav Noiroi have gone on his own? Answers the Gemara, Omri Rabbi Noiroi Sada Achrina Hava B'Adei. The truth is Rav Noiroi didn't go on his own. He went with somebody else to testify about that person. The fact that the Braisa only mentioned Rav Noiroi, Mishum Kvoidesh Rav Noiroi, is just in respect to Rav Noiroi, because the Braisa is coming to impress on us that Rav Noiroi went even on Shabbos to testify on that aid that he was kosher. So, just to tell us that he was a prominent person who would go, so it mentions just him. But of course there was somebody else who went with him as well. Rav Ashi Omar. Rav Ashi says a different explanation. Rav Noiroi Sahada Achrina Hava b'Usha. Because Rav Noiroi knew that in Usha there's somebody else who the Sanhedrin knows, who also knows this witness. So I don't need to go with two people on Shabbos to Michal Shabbos. It's enough if I go, I'll pair up with the other person who's already in Usha, because we are both recognized by the Sanhedrin and we'll both testify together on the loyalty of this witness. Rav Noiroi went to pair up with him. Says the Gemara, so what's the chiddush? What are you trying to impress on us? That he went to give testimony together with another aid? What's the chiddush? Says the Gemara, there's a chiddush here. I may have thought I may have thought that since you don't know if you're going to find this other person in Usha, maybe you'll get there and this person won't be at home, and then you will have been Mechalal Shabbos for no reason. Says, nonetheless, Rav Noiroi maintained, I can be Mechalal Shabbos to go to Usha in the hope that I may find the other witness, that between the two of us, we can testify that this person who saw the new moon is kosher, Kamash Malon, and that's what the Braisa is coming to impress on us, that even though there's an element of risk, nonetheless, Rav Noiroi was allowed to, and he went to, and was Mechalal Shabbos to give Eidos. Continues the Gemara. Ki asa Ula, when Ula came from Eretz Yisrael to Bavel, Omar, he said, Kotshua leyarcha b'marova. In Eretz Yisrael, they were already Mekadesh the Chodesh. Omar Rav Kahana. Rav Kahana said, Lo yimi boya Ula. Not only Ula, the Gavra Rabbahu, who's a very prominent and a great person, the Mehimon, that he's believed to say when Rosh Chodesh was. Elafila inish de alma. Even a regular, any other person, Nami Mehimon. We're not talking about testifying that somebody is kosher. We're not talking about testifying on the new moon. We're talking about testifying that Beis Din said which day was Rosh Chodesh. Anyone is believed on that. Why? Ma'itama, Kol Milsa Davida Legluya. There's a rule in many other places in Shas that anything which is likely to be revealed at some point, people don't lie about something that they know everyone's going to find out. And since everybody's going to ultimately find out when Rosh Chodesh was, we can believe this person. Tanina Me'achi, we also learned in a Braisa, if one person from far away, Omar says, Kitchu Beis Din is a Chodesh, that Beis Din made Rosh Chodesh on a specific day, Nemon, he is believed. Continues the Gemara. We saw in the Mishnah, at first they would receive anyone who's coming to testify on the new moon until the Baisusim messed something up and deceived the Beis Din, and then from that point the Sanhedrin only receive Eidim of people that they know, or people they know are testifying about these people. Ton Rabbanon, we learned in a Braisa. Ma kilkulu ha-Baisusim. How did the Baisusim manage to deceive the Beis Din? Or they didn't manage, but they tried hard. Pa'amachas, there was once an incident. Shebikshu Baisusim lahatus ha-Chachomim. The Baisusim, they wanted to deceive the Chachomim. Sochru shnei bnei Adam, they hired two people, bedaled mei zuz, for 400 zuz. Echod mishalonu, one of the witnesses that they hired were Mishalonu, were from our people, which was a trustworthy person, as we'll soon see. Ve'echad Mishalem, and one of them was part of their gang who was happy to lie. And these Baisusim assumed that both Eidim would be happy to play along and lie to the Beis Din. Shelohem Heyud Edusai, the witness that was coming, that was a Baisusi himself, he gave his testimony, V'yotza, and left and went out of the room where the Sanhedrin were talking to him. Shelonu, when the person who was really on our side, who was a loyal and straight person, when he entered, Omruloi, the Beis Din, the Sanhedrin, said to him, Emoir, tell us, how did you see the new moon? Omar Lem, he said to them, and he said something very, very interesting and cryptic, and the Mefarshim here explain what he was alluding to and what he was getting at. But we're just going to make a basic reading of the Gemara. He says, I was going up in a place called Ma'ale Adumim, and I saw the new moon, it was crouching between two rocks. Its head was resembling that of a calf, its ears were resembling that of a kid, Karn of its horns, were resembling those of a deer, its tail, Munachas loibein yarchoisav, was placed between its legs. Ve'tzatzti boy, and I looked at it. V'nirtati, and I was startled. V'nofalti lachoiroi, and I fell backwards. V'meina tema'minimli, if you don't believe me, harei mosayim zuz, here's 200 zuz tzrurim li besadini, that are bundled in my cloak. And that was the bribery that he got from the Baisusim to give the false witness, and obviously he didn't. He was obviously very upfront with the Sanhedrin, and the Mefarshim discuss why he had to give this whole description. Omru Loi, so the Sanhedrin, who realized this, asked this aide, Mi his kikcholekach, who involved you in this? Who made you do this? Omar Lem, he said to them, Shamati, I heard, Shabikshu Baisusim lahatois es hachachomim, that the Baisusim want to deceive the Chachomim. Omarti, I said to myself, Eilei chani voidialhem, I better go and tell the Sanhedrin about this. Shema yavoyu b'nei odom she'inam muhugonim, maybe some unworthy people will come, v'yatu es hachachomim, and they'll mislead the Beis Din, the Sanhedrin. Omruloi, they said to him that even though the money they gave you was in order that you should testify against and say a lie, and you didn't, so you don't really deserve the money. Nonetheless, we Beis Din have the power of Hefker, Beis Din Hefker. Mosayim zuz nasunim lecha b'matana. Number one, the 200 zuz are yours to keep, you don't need to give them back. V'asoichercha, and the one who hired you, yimtech ala omid, is going to be stretched on a post and is going to be flogged. That's how they used to give Malchus. In Malchus Daf Chof Beis, is going to get punished. And Ba'oisei Shah, at that point, Iskinu, they made this decree that Sheloyu Mekablin Elo Min HaMakirin, that they would only receive Eidus for the new moon from people that they recognized to be loyal and trustworthy, and that is how this takana came about. And in Mirat Hashem, in the next year, we're going to continue the next Mishnah.